the eldest princess hosted a flower-pinning banquet to select a daughter-in-law. Though countless noble ladies attended, the princess singled me out. Rumor had it her only son had a favored concubine whom he doted upon. After marrying him, he discovered true love and planned to travel the world with her. No matter, I never intended to marry him for a harmonious union. I only sought mutual respect. Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. Princess Rongyang hosted the hairpin and flower banquet, with the emperor personally bestowing hundreds of exquisite blooms from the imperial garden. As the princess sought a bride for her son, half the noble maidens of the capital attended. I was Xiao Lingshu, eldest daughter of the fourth-rank minister of the Ministry of Ceremonies. Amongst them, my family background was merely ordinary. Yet amidst the sea of noble maidens, the princess singled me out. Princess Rongyang, the emperor's youngest sister, though not of the same mother, had been raised since childhood in the empress's palace, fostering a deep sibling bond. Upon reaching adulthood, she was betrothed to the Duke of Dinghua. Their marriage was harmonious, with the wife leading and the husband following, becoming a celebrated tale. The princess's only son, Huiyan, was granted the title of Viscount at birth, becoming the heir apparent to the Duke of Dinghua. His status was exalted, promising a lifetime of splendor and privilege. Among the capital's noble maidens, those who neither sought the palace nor wished to marry an imperial prince found Huiyan the most desirable husband to be found. It was widely rumored that Huiyan had a favored concubine, cherished above all others. She had once been a palace maid in the Changxin Palace. Seeing Huiyan's fondness for her, the Empress Dowager had bestowed her upon him. Yet for young women raised in prominent families, accustomed to fathers and brothers with multiple wives and concubines, this held no surprise. The rules of this flower-pinning banquet stipulated selecting one blossom from the garden's splendor to adorn one's hair. 3 days later, another banquet would be held where each guest must present a work of art to enhance the princess's glory. Talented women throughout the capital would spare no effort to impress. Yet I found myself pondering, if the princess sought a daughter-in-law for her son based on talent, she need only inquire among the renowned scholars. If she valued family lineage, why host such an elaborate banquet? Were not the families they already frequented sufficiently distinguished? The Duke of Dinghua had once fought on the battlefield, earning glorious military honors. Huiyan, however, could no longer achieve such feats. Therefore, for the princess, a bride whose status is too exalted or whose family wields too much power would be a disadvantage. What the princess seeks is a matriarch who can uphold the family name and support Huiyan. 3 days later, some presented paintings, others composed poetry, and still others crafted fragrances from flowers, each with their own merits. What I offered was a hair ornament. I explained that I had worked with the maids in my household to design and craft the hair ornaments from fabric, then sent the servants to distribute them among the common folk in the capital. The common women labored day and night, rarely find time to adorn themselves. I hope these headpieces, when they gaze at their reflections in mirrors or admire themselves in water, will lend them the beauty of imperial flowers, allowing them to savor the joys of womanhood, sheltered by the princess's radiant glory. During distribution, all expressed gratitude to the princess. The finest piece was presented to the princess. Upon hearing this, Princess Rongyang sighed deeply with emotion. She summoned a lady-in-waiting to pin the flower in her own hair. She then ordered that after the flower banquet concluded, the imperial flowers be sent to Lingyin Temple so common folk might also admire them. Over the next 2 months, the princess invited me to accompany her on several occasions. Another 2 months passed before the princess dispatched a court official to formally propose marriage to my family. Imperial gifts accompanied the proposal. Though the position of Minister of Ceremonies was no small honor, it paled in comparison to the imperial lineage of the princess and the illustrious prestige of the Duke of Dinghua's household. Throughout the capital, People murmured that the Xie family had leaped over the Dragon Gate. Some discerning individuals whispered privately that the Duke of Dingwa and Princess Rongyang had played their hand masterfully. The Duke's household already possessed immense wealth and prestige. Marrying the daughter of another high-ranking noble house would risk appearing overly ostentatious. Marrying the daughter of a fourth-rank official, however, was neither beneath them nor failed to convey their intentions. I seldom attended banquets in the past, and my sole reputation in the capital was as a skilled homemaker. My birth mother passed away early, and my father remarried. Though my stepmother was kind, she lacked domestic skills. Thus, from a young age, beyond studying the 4 books and practicing the 6 arts, I took up the ledgers and managed the household affairs. It wasn't until my elder sister-in-law arrived that I finally handed over the keys and ledgers to her. While I remained unmarried, both my stepmother and elder sister-in-law were secretly arranging matches for me. I set my sights on Hui Yan, not out of admiration or affection, but because I saw him as a suitable match. If I must become someone's daughter-in-law, why not choose the one from a distinguished family? If you asked any maiden about her memories of awaiting marriage, the days of preparation would always be hazy, drifting away like clouds. By the time I came to my senses, I was already in the bridal chamber, facing Hui Yan. He truly lived up to the rumors, handsome as jade, noble as gold, a dashing young man. He was looking at me, his expression gentle. Whether he was pleased or not, I was the bride chosen by the eldest princess, the future lady of the Dingwa Marquis. From this day forward, I would weather life's storms alongside him. He spoke, Ling Shu. This marriage was arranged by my mother, who weighed its merits and drawbacks with me. She said you possess both beauty and wisdom, are capable and discerning, suited to be the matriarch of our clan. I trust her judgment. So I agreed. After tonight, we shall be husband and wife. I hope we can treat each other with mutual respect and harmony. After our marriage, I will take up my official duties, serving my parents, attending social engagements, managing both the inner and outer affairs of the household. All these matters will require your careful attention. Qianghua is my former concubine. She is a good woman, and I am certain you will get along well with her. Hearing these words, they sounded less like a husband speaking to his wife and more like an official briefing colleagues or instructing subordinates. It seemed the concubine receiving his admonitions was truly the one he cherished. But then, one gets what one seeks. What grievance could there be? So, blushing yet smiling, I softly replied, "Husband, rest assured. Husband and wife are one. From this day forward, I shall serve your parents, manage household affairs, treat your concubines kindly, and support you fully, so you may devote yourself entirely to serving the nation without distraction." He was pleased. That night, the rites were completed. On the first day after the wedding, I paid respects to my in-laws, met relatives, and honored our ancestors. On the second day, I entered the palace to express gratitude. On the third day after the wedding, she returned to her parents' home. It wasn't until the fourth day that I finally drank the tea offered by Li Qianghua. In the days prior, the eldest princess had excused her attendance, citing her delicate health. The beauty before me was exquisitely delicate and graceful. Even among the beauties at the flower-pinning banquet that day, she would have stood out as first-rate. No wonder she had captured Hui Yan's affection. But I was no less beautiful. On the day of the palace gratitude ceremony, the Dowager Empress stroked my hand and remarked to the Empress Dowager, "The man Rongyang chose truly is extraordinary." I wondered why the match was rushed. It was for fear another family might snatch her away. This drew laughter throughout the hall. After accepting her tea and bestowing a pair of lustrous jade bracelets, I invited her to sit. Madame Li is frail. There's no need for her to come daily to pay respects and attend to chores. She replied timidly. But how could that be? As a concubine, It is my duty to serve the mistress. I am deeply grateful for your generosity, madam, but I dare not be so presumptuous. If I say it's acceptable, what difference does it make? Your husband himself says you're frail. Rest well in the Lianzhu pavilion. Come visit when you have matters to discuss. Only then did she agree. I had no shortage of responsibilities. The princess and the duke resided in the princess's mansion. After reaching the age of majority, Huyen moved back to the duke's residence. First, he wished to establish himself as a head of household. Second, as the heir apparent, he must eventually take charge of the duke's residence. As the heir's wife, my responsibilities were numerous. Each day, I personally or through messengers inquired after my in-laws' well-being. I managed the household accounts, handled social engagements, and oversaw the servants. Beyond our main branch, the duke's residence also housed the second and third branches. Originally, both branches jointly managed the residence. After I entered the estate, I assumed the authority to oversee household affairs as the heir's wife. This inevitably stirred private discontent that required suppression. If she could be of assistance, that would be one thing. But my maid Han Fu discovered that this concubine was solely preoccupied with romantic entanglements and idle pursuits with the heir. When the crown prince resided at the princess's mansion, she was his sole noble concubine. By rights, she should have managed affairs within his quarters. Yet she knew nothing of such matters, relying instead on the crown prince's senior maid, Qingji, to handle everything haphazardly. Speaking of Qingji, Hanfu also told me she'd heard that Qingji had once been the crown prince's confidant, considered the foremost among his personal maids. I'd like to summon her for an interview. If she proves useful, I might elevate her to a concubine. My talent for managing affairs was discovered when I was 9. While my stepmother listened to the steward's report with a headache, I was writing nearby. After hearing just a few sentences, I could help her pinpoint the problem, which astonished her greatly. I don't dislike managing affairs. For a woman living in this world, what matters most is what she can control. For months after my marriage, I had firmly established my footing within the duke's residence. Toward my in-laws, I showed utmost respect, personally visiting the princess's residence every other day to pay my respects and attend to her needs. With my sisters-in-law, I maintained the decorum expected of a junior relative in word and deed. Yet if they deliberately sought to cause trouble, I would not yield. Ultimately, the heir was the future master of the duke's household. To my husband, I presented myself as the exemplary wife he deserved, attentive and considerate, discussing matters with him rather than resorting to petty jealousy. When necessary, I would perform the pleasures of the boudoir, such as trimming candles and drawing eyebrows. To the concubines, I show tolerance and generosity. Not only did I summon the imperial physician to treat Li Qianghua, but I also elevated Qingji, the crown prince's personal maid, to the status of a concubine. To the servants, I combine kindness with authority. Those who can read the winds and align themselves with me early on will be rewarded with important roles. Those who relied on seniority to lord over others would face my discipline. Learning that I now held the reins of the duke's household, distinguishing loyalty from treachery would come later. I planned to gradually replace the stewards managing affairs in both households over the next 2 years. For a time, both the eldest princess and the heir were thoroughly satisfied with me. If asked how I achieved this, the answer lay in 2 words: without a care. To me, the princess is a superior who demands earnest respect. To me, the servants are pawns assisting in managing the duke's residence. As for the concubines, Li Qianghua, whom I pity, is favored by the crown prince but poses no threat. Qingji is loyal and capable, a long-serving member of the household. Elevating her to concubine, granting her my favor, will keep her by my side to handle miscellaneous affairs. I harbor no affection for the crown prince, only marital duty. That's why I remain magnanimous and composed. I once loved someone deeply. Only after parting ways did I understand what it means to be unshakable through detachment. The crown prince stays with me 10 days each month. The remaining 20, he spends at Li Qianghua's Lianzigwen or in Qingxi's quarters. I pay it no mind. That night, while he was staying at Li Qianghua's Lianzigwen, I couldn't find my jade necklace before bed. After searching my dressing table for ages, I finally discovered it tucked inside an account book. Only after placing it under my pillow did I feel my heart settle back into its proper place. My maid Ling Fong, who slept beside me, asked, "Madam, must you still keep this jade necklace with you to sleep?" I sighed, yes. No one knows this was gifted to me by Hui Ming, the esteemed disciple of the current imperial preceptor. Before I turned 14, I would stay at Lingyin Temple for half a month each year to pray for my deceased mother's soul. It was there I met Hui Ming. Little me would chase after little Hui Ming, begging him to tell me stories from the sutras. Often, before he could finish, my head would gradually drift down, resting on his shoulder. This jade necklace was his birthday gift to me. After I turned 14, he stopped seeing me. Later, he departed without a word, wandering the world. Each time I sought an opportunity to see him, only his master would appear. Each time, he would say, "All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows, like dew and like lightning, thus should they be perceived," urging me to accept this truth. Thus I understood we were never meant to be. My marriage to the crown prince was also thanks to the state preceptor. When the princess took my birth chart to consult him, he declared, "This girl's destiny is marked for nobility, she may establish a household." Only then did I smoothly enter the duke's residence. Tonight, perhaps stirred by the sudden autumn wind chilling the heart, I found myself unexpectedly recalling old memories. But dwelling on it serves no purpose. I told Ling Fong, "Let's sleep." Half a year after my marriage into the duke's household, the eldest princess began inquiring about children. Whenever she bestowed gifts, she never forgot to include a prescription for fertility-enhancing herbs. After all, in this world, only offspring can inherit the family estate, even those born to a concubine. If neither the main wife nor the concubines bore children, the family estate would inevitably be seized by relatives after the husband's passing. Thus, sensible women who remain childless for long would consider adopting an heir early on. If even ordinary bureaucrats and wealthy officials acted thus, how much more so the duke's residence, where hereditary titles and estates were at stake. Even common folk faced the same reality. If a husband died childless, countless relatives would already be eyeing the estate before the coffin was sealed. My womb and Li Qianghua's were scrutinized by the entire household. Some hoped for news of pregnancy soon, others, naturally, hoped we'd never conceive. Fortunately, my child proved remarkably considerate. During the harshest winter, a blizzard swept across the capital, and on that very day, I was diagnosed with a pregnancy pulse. The news reached the Princess Dowager's residence immediately. She and the eunuch were overjoyed, hastening to the duke's residence to see me. They brought numerous medicinal herbs and fabrics, and even instructed me that I needn't make the customary visits to the Princess Dowager's residence anymore. The child within me was the priority. In the warm main chamber, the princess held my hand as she questioned the imperial physician for details. Upon learning all was well, she asked me, "Have you sent word to the palace? Has Yenner been informed?" I replied, "Naturally. I sent word. But my husband is in the palace and may not be able to return immediately." Hui Yan held the rank of third-grade Imperial Guard, serving 12 days on duty followed by 12 days off. The position of Imperial Guard was mostly filled by the sons of noble families and high ministers. As the emperor's nephew, he didn't need to patrol personally but only commanded the patrols. In this lifetime, he would never have to go to the border like his father had. The princess smiled, her beautifully preserved eyes, untouched by time, crinkling with amusement. This is Yenner's first time becoming a father. Let him fret for now. When Hui Yen returned, he was indeed overjoyed. He embraced me, yet hesitated to hold me tightly. After a moment of silly grinning, he suddenly declared, "We must start thinking of a name." I scolded him playfully. "My husband, you're overjoyed. They say pregnancy lasts 10 months. And we're only in the first month. Even in families who take it seriously, they don't start looking for names this early." Though our bond wasn't deeply passionate, if time could cultivate affection through companionship, it would be a peaceful life. At 4 months pregnant, the eldest princess sent a lady-in-waiting and 2 wet nurses to the duke's residence. The lady-in-waiting took over my duties, while the wet nurses tended to my health. I relished the leisure, spending my days nurturing my body, taking walks, and resting to ensure a safe pregnancy. For the first 2 months, Hui Yen played the role of a devoted husband, spending 20 out of every 30 days in my courtyard. I used pregnancy discomfort as an excuse to avoid intimacy, and he made no protest. Yet he could not endure the solitude. By the 3rd month, he began spending nights in the chambers of his other 3 concubines. Indeed, because I was pregnant, my mother-in-law had bestowed upon him another concubine, Ling Yang, a woman of breathtaking beauty. With a new arrival in the household, Hui Yen inevitably showed her more favor. Naturally, I had no objections. And Qingxi, being of a quiet disposition, said nothing either. It was Li Qianghua who couldn't bear it. Hui Yen had always treated her with tenderness, but now the newcomer was basking in his favor. She came to my courtyard several times, weeping and lamenting, telling me how Ling Yang was arrogant and bullying her, how she had even snatched the chance to choose fabrics for new spring garments before Li Qianghua could. Her complaints gave me a headache. I placated her with words like, "The newcomer is just a novelty, and you still hold the most important place in the young master's heart." Once she was soothed, she would leave, looking quite pleased with herself. When Hui Yen returned, I told him he couldn't just attend to the newcomer, he must also show consideration to the old. My true intent was to ensure he showered affection equally, preventing the young concubine from sulking and weeping. After all, appeasing a mistress comes at a different price with me. Little did I know, Hui Yen interpreted my words as a rebuke for his neglect during my pregnancy. Guilt mingled with a touch of smugness over his wives and concubines vying for his attention. I had no choice but to play along, hinting to Li Qianghua that she should stop merely crying and start thinking of solutions. After much scheming, Li Qianghua finally succeeded, drunk beneath the blossoms. She recited poetry that stirred Hui Yan's memory of their first meeting in Changxin Palace, where she had brushed fallen petals from his path. His heart softened, rekindling their old affection. White lotus and red peach blossoms vied for beauty in the rear courtyard. Hui Yen busied himself balancing between his new and old loves, leaving me with a relatively peaceful pregnancy. By the 9th month of my pregnancy, the maid Han Fu shared news. Rumors were swirling in the capital that the crown prince was reportedly having a close relationship with the concubine daughter of a 5th-rank official, sparking much gossip. I recalled that over the past 2 months, Hui Yen had indeed been rarely home, neglecting both the white lotus and the red peach. Sensing something amiss, I instructed Han Fu to summon the young master's personal attendant to inquire. The servant stammered and hesitated until I threatened to send him to the stables if he didn't speak truthfully. Only then did he confess. The rumors were true. Hui Yen had recently become infatuated with the concubine-born daughter of the Ministry of Rites. He went with her to temples to pray for blessings, galloped with her in the countryside, and even rented out an entire stall of lanterns for her. I thought to myself, judging by this display, he must have found true love. Hui Yen had once adored Li Qianghua intensely, Yet his affection for her resembled more the fondness for a cherished pet. He doted on her because of her docile and endearing nature. Later, his infatuation with Ling Yang was purely lust at first sight. I ordered the servant not to tell Hui Yan about my inquiries, threatening to cast him out of the duke's residence if he did. After the servant left, Ling Fang asked me what to do. I said I was already 9 months along. His reputation was the least of my concerns now. We'd quietly investigate the cause while pretending ignorance. To me, my safety and that of the child within me mattered far more than Hui Yan's affairs. After 10 months of pregnancy, I gave birth to a healthy son, white and plump, utterly captivating my heart. The Grand Princess and the Duke were overjoyed. With the Duke's household now assured of an heir, even the palace bestowed numerous gifts. The Duke personally chose the formal name, Hujing, hoping he would be dignified and composed, and follow in his ancestors' footsteps. The childhood name was mine, Chang'an, wishing him peace and tranquility. They stayed at the Duke's residence for a month after the child's birth, waiting for the full-month celebration. The princess held the baby constantly, refusing to let go. She even had her childhood jade necklace brought for him to wear. I hastily declined on the child's behalf, but the princess insisted. He is my first grandson. I adore him beyond measure. This is only fitting. Just before they returned to the princess's residence, she kissed Chang'an once more and then said to me, "The crown prince has been far too reckless lately. When you have a moment, ask him how he intends to handle this. If he truly loves her, let her enter the household as a concubine." What sort of example is this otherwise? Holding Chang'an, I nodded in agreement. With Chang'an's arrival, Hui Yan was equally overjoyed. This was his first time becoming a father, a moment of profound significance for both him and me. During the month the princess and the Duke of Dingwo were away at the Duke's residence, he stayed home. After visiting his parents, he would come to the main courtyard to see the child. He truly looked like a doting father. Yet I could see that amidst his joy, his mind would occasionally drift elsewhere. When the bustle died down, he would suddenly pause, lost in thought. I resolved to take the initiative. One day, both of us were in the main courtyard. Chang'an slept peacefully in his swaddling clothes, his rosy cheeks radiant with adorable innocence. I gazed at him longingly before instructing the wet nurse to carry him to the nearby cradle. Then, I dismissed everyone else. He sensed I had something to say and turned his gaze to me, waiting for me to speak. I placed the toy I'd been using to amuse Chang'an back into the basket and asked, "Husband, what do you intend to do about the concubine daughter of the Ministry of Rights? She is, after all, a maiden awaiting marriage. This situation does nothing to benefit her reputation. If you truly favor her, why not bring her into the household as a secondary wife?" He paused, startled. "You know about this?" Then he sighed. "Ling Shu, I know I shouldn't share this with you, but you are the most understanding woman in the world. Who else could possibly comprehend my heart? Nian Nian and I truly love each other. But she is an extraordinary woman. She absolutely refuses to be a secondary wife." I sneered inwardly. If I harbored even a shred of affection for him, hearing of his mutual affection with another would likely make me vomit. Unwilling to be a concubine, what does that even mean? Does he expect me to vacate this position? I sneered inwardly, though my expression remained composed. Truly an extraordinary woman. Yet this situation will tarnish both their reputations. It seems your bond with her is unbreakable. If you don't mind, perhaps I could inquire about the young lady's feelings? He grasped my hand with delight. "Ling Shu, you are truly the best wife in the world. I entrust this to you, please ask her what she thinks." 3 days later, Qin Nian Nian, the second daughter of the Ministry of Rights official, arrived at the Duke's residence bearing my invitation. I received her in the small flower hall. She glided in with grace, her features like a painted portrait. exuding an air of refined charm. She curtsied before me, her gaze holding not a trace of shyness or awkwardness. Addressing me as your ladyship. I smiled, motioning her to rise and sit, then summoned a maid to serve tea. After exchanging pleasantries, I dismissed the servants. My hand gently brushed a strand of hair that had fallen near my ear. I imagine you understand why you were invited here today. She nodded. I continued. Recently, rumors about you and the young master have been circulating widely. This is detrimental to his reputation and equally damaging to your own good name. The young master says he holds affection for you but doesn't know how to express it. Therefore, I ask on his behalf, would you be willing to enter the Duke's residence? Instead of answering directly, she countered. I've long heard of the Crown Prince's consort's beauty. Seeing you today, I realize their praise was well-deserved. But knowing the Crown Prince harbors feelings for me, how can you, his consort, ask me such a question on his behalf? Does it not trouble you? I replied with feigned nonchalance. If my husband is pleased, I am pleased. This was a complete lie. She paused, her eyes flickering with sympathy and undisguised contempt. Yet she said, the Crown Prince's consort is so magnanimous. Surely you must have heard that I refuse to be a secondary wife. I replied, naturally, I have heard. But since you refuse to be a secondary wife, you should sever ties with the Crown Prince so he may seek a more suitable match. Seeing her lower her head in silence, her body language resisting, I remained unruffled. Taking a sip of tea, I said slowly, I know this might be cruel for you, but this matter must be resolved. Either you yield, or you two cease all contact. The Crown Prince is no ordinary man. Beyond being the heir to the Duke of Dingwa, he is also the only son of Princess Rongyang. Such a scandal would not be tolerated by his mother for long. I invited you here today because my husband and I have discussed this matter. I came forward hoping for a resolution that satisfies everyone. But if the situation remains unresolved, I fear things may take a turn none of us wish to see. I rose. Enough. After speaking at length, Chang'an must be clamoring for my presence. I shall have a maid escort you out. Only, I hope you will consider my words carefully, do not dismiss them as jest. This is for the Crown Prince's sake, and for the sake of your own reputation. With that, I departed unhurriedly. 2 months later, Qin Yinyan, the concubine-born second daughter of Qin Yuyi, Assistant Minister of Rights, entered the Duke's residence as the Crown Prince's secondary consort. The Crown Prince ordered lavish celebrations, second only to my own in grandeur. From that day forward, the Crown Prince's courtyard knew no distinction between white lotus and red peach. Through all 4 seasons, she alone held the spring. In spring, the Crown Prince gathered flowers with her to brew wine. In summer, they rode together upon the lake. In autumn, they ascended pavilions to admire the scenery. In winter, they drank wine while gazing at the snow. Thus, it seems fate has its own course. Once one encounters their destined love, all that came before becomes mere compromise. The eldest princess disliked Qin Yinyan, but she couldn't resist the Crown Prince's affection. With a legitimate eldest grandson now in the family, she resigned herself to it, out of sight, out of mind. The Crown Prince would visit my quarters for a few days each month. He no longer consummated our marriage, merely teasing and playing with Chang'an, or chatting with me about matters within the mansion. Once, with resignation tinged with regret, he confessed to me, Ling Shu. Only after meeting Yin Yin did I understand the agony of yearning. All that came before was but a mirage. Though I showed no outward reaction, inwardly I found it rather agreeable, no longer needing to feign girlish affectations with him. Li Qianghua and Ling Yang could not endure such cold treatment. One tried to rekindle old flames. The other attempted to captivate him with her charms. After half a year of turmoil, neither succeeded. Huyen did initially stay overnight in their chambers twice, after all. They were his former beloved concubines. Yet Qin Yinyan either found excuses to send him away that very night or wept bitterly before the wind the next morning. From then on, Huyen ceased visiting their quarters altogether, truly embracing the vow of phone life. One love, one partner. Naturally, they disliked Qin Yinyan. They targeted her several times. But instead of gaining favor, they only provoked Huyen's fierce anger. Ling Yang was confined to her quarters. Li Qianghua, however, was diagnosed with pregnancy around this time, narrowly escaping punishment. It was likely conceived on the very night Qin Yinyan didn't send her away. Yet the young master remained resentful. He visited her quarters briefly, offered a few instructions, then departed as if entrusting her entirely to my care. Thus, both women fell silent. Ling Yang was confined within the gates. Li Qianghua had lost all hope. She confided in me, I see it now. The crown prince is utterly cold-hearted. All those vows of eternal love? With a new bride. He likely remembers none. But now I carry his child, boy or girl. It gives me something to hold on to. From now on, this is how it will be. The grand princess, however, took a keen interest in Li Qianghua's pregnancy, bestowing gifts several times. After all, more children were always better. Qin Yinyan never provoked me. Firstly, because I was the daughter-in-law favored by the princess, managing the duke's household affairs and bearing his eldest son. Secondly, perhaps because she'd heard tales of my blend of kindness and authority. As for Qingxi and the other concubines, Huyen always pretended not to notice them. But Li Qianghua and Ling Yang weren't so fortunate. The latter remains confined to her quarters, having been publicly humiliated twice by Qin Yinyan in her courtyard. Ling Yang fell ill from the humiliation. I had her treated, sent her many gifts, and then reprimanded the matrons outside her quarters if she is confined. Then naturally, aside from maids delivering items, those inside cannot leave and those outside cannot enter. How could concubine Qin have been allowed inside? Now that Li Qianghua is pregnant, Qin Yinyan couldn't openly confront her. Yet when they met in the garden, she brazenly flaunted Huyen's exclusive favor toward her and mocked Li Qianghua's child for lacking its father's affection. Li Qianghua, naturally timid, could only retreat and weep silently. Her maid, seeing her weeping, hurried to tell me. I naturally went to see her and set her straight. You yourself said you have no expectations. Why let her few words hurt you? Whether you bear a son or daughter, they will be the young master or mistress of the duke's household, the grandchild of the princess. A lifetime of honor and wealth awaits. If your tears harm the child, do you think you'll feel the pain later? Startled by my words, she quickly stifled her sobs. Back in the main courtyard, I summoned Qin Yinyan and gave her a stern talking to. This was the first time I'd ever spoken to her so harshly. Madame Li is now with child, I said. Even watching her daily, I fear misfortune might strike. You should never, ever have approached her to provoke her. Had anything happened to Madame Li, even with the young master's protection, you would have faced dire consequences. As for Ling Yang, confinement is punishment enough. Any clear-eyed person can see the young master's partiality toward you. Why must you kick her while she's down? Barging in to bully her? As I spoke, I ordered the maidservant by her side to be brought forward. The mistress's discord with others is a minor matter, a little comfort could have resolved it. Since you failed to counsel her and instead incited your mistress, escalating the situation, you deserve punishment. Go and receive your punishment with the wooden paddle. Your wages will be docked for 2 months. Should this happen again, the punishment will be far harsher. Qin Yinyan admitted her fault at the time, but as soon as Huyen returned, she went to complain to him. So Huyen came to me. saying that since concubine Li was unharmed anyway, why punish Nian Nian's servants and cause her embarrassment? I looked at Huiyan's face, filled with disappointment. I had no romantic feelings for him, but we shared the bond of marriage. Yet he spoke such words for Qin Nian's sake. Where does that leave the woman who pledged her life to him? Who now carries his child? I was truly disappointed in him. I said, "Husband, you may think it a trifling matter, merely a quarrel between maids. Why tarnish Qin's reputation? But you forget that concubine Li has always been frail. How many precious herbs were used to sustain her? It took great effort to carry this child to term. If concubine Li bears a son, he will be your second son. If a daughter, she will be your first daughter. A woman carrying a child for 10 months is like passing through the gates of death. No matter how angry Qin Nianyang may be, she should not vent it at this critical moment. My punishment of Lady Qin's servants was meant both to protect Lady Li's pregnancy and to teach Lady Qin this lesson, even if she disregards Lady Li. She ought to cherish the child she carries, your heir. Surely Lady Qin understands my intent now. Why must you come here to plead her case? My lord?" In pointing out Lady Qin's faults, I was equally pointing out his own failings as a husband and father. He seemed to want to say something, yet no words came out. Finally, he only sighed and left the main courtyard without a word. Madame Li gave birth to a daughter after a difficult labor. She was the eldest granddaughter of the eldest princess and the Duke of Dingwa. Named Huachan, her childhood name was Coral. Whether Chang'an or Coral, both names embodied a mother's simplest wish for her children to be healthy, prosperous, and live a life of peace. Cradling her long-awaited daughter, Lady Li wept uncontrollably. From that day forward, she became a mother of unyielding strength. Huiyan never took a liking to Lady Li. He visited his daughter only a handful of times. Days flowed by like clouds drifting across the sky. We lived our lives, and Huiyan and Qin Nianyan lived theirs. When Huijing was 4, Huiyan suddenly came to me. He solemnly explained that Qin Nianyan deeply resented being confined to a small courtyard for her entire life. She harbored a lifelong wish to travel across the land, experiencing its diverse landscapes. Having often heard her speak of this, Huiyan couldn't help but want to fulfill her wish. Of course, he didn't mean for Qin Nianyan to go alone. They planned to take one bodyguard and one maid with them. He came to discuss with me whether this was feasible. I felt I had never heard such an absurd notion. With parents above and children below, Huiyan actually considered abandoning the vast Dingwa Duke's residence to roam freely with Qin Nianyan. I was tempted to find a Taoist priest to see if Qin Nianyan had bewitched him. Naturally, I vehemently opposed it. At first, I tried gentle persuasion, hoping to dissuade him, but he refused to listen, and our argument grew increasingly heated. I accepted his unfair treatment. I accepted his exclusive devotion to one woman. I accepted his neglect of our children, but I could not accept him abandoning his parents and forsaking everyone else. This was the first time I had ever quarreled with Huiyan. We had a huge fight and parted on bad terms. Perhaps my opposition provoked him, for he went directly to the princess's residence to discuss this matter with his in-laws. Of course, according to the servants who tipped me off, his words were much more tactful in front of his parents-in-law. After all, he knew his mother disliked Qin Nianyan. His reasoning was that in this lifetime, he was destined not to march to the front lines, fight on the battlefield, or defend the nation. Yet he also refused to spend his entire life confined to the capital. He wished to resign his post and wander the 4 seas, to behold the splendid landscapes of the realm. Qin Nianyan, who understood his heart best, would accompany him, thus reassuring his parents. His parents reacted even more fiercely than I had. The princess slapped him across the face, and the Duke of Dingwa ordered him beaten with a cane. The master said, while one's parents are alive, one should not travel far, if one must travel. One must have a proper destination. How could they accept their only son resigning his post, abandoning parental care, neglecting his children's education, forsaking the family legacy, all to wander the world with a concubine? The eldest princess, enraged, immediately ordered servants to bring Qin Yanyan before her. For the sake of his love, Huyen defied his parents for the first time, declaring outright that the princess should not involve others. This was entirely his own decision. If his mother insisted on this course, he would never forgive her. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. A man with children of his own, resorting to such childish, unreasonable threats against his own parents. The princess had him confined within the palace grounds, forbidding him to leave or contact anyone. She strictly ordered the servants not to leak a single word. As for Qin Yanyan, she was beaten with a paddle by a lady-in-waiting sent by the princess and locked in a courtyard. Qin Yanyan told me, "You all have too many desires in your hearts: power, status, wealth. That's why you don't understand. I only want him." Huyen was confined within the princess's residence to reflect. He chose the most impotent form of resistance, a hunger strike. To achieve his goal, he resorted to wounding a mother's heart. How despicable! After my anger subsided, I found myself adrift, confused about whether the mutual respect I sought was meant to be shared with someone like this. Was all my effort truly worth it? It was Li Qianghua who brought me back to my senses. Holding coral, she said to me, "Madam, all these years in the vast duke's residence, managing finances, personnel, social obligations, raising the children, haven't you handled it all? What has the crown prince ever managed? Beyond courting Qin Yanyan, has his mind ever been occupied with anything else? What has he done for us? With or without him, our lives go on much the same. What difference does it make? If he wishes to wander the world with Qin Yanyan, then let him go." Her words struck me. I am the eldest princess's daughter-in-law, mother to the duke's only grandson, and hold the reins of power in the duke's residence. Every servant respects and obeys me. For years, I've managed the accounts, allocated personnel, handled social engagements, cultivated relationships, and overseen countless shops and estates. In all these matters, which single task did Huyen ever assist me with? Which could he possibly help with? Which could he actually accomplish? As a husband, he's nothing but an empty title. Since Huyen proves so utterly useless, why keep him around to be an eyesore? Better to grant his wish. The next day, I went to the princess's residence to ask her to grant Huyen's request. The princess's expression darkened as she asked me, "Ling Shu, have you lost your mind? Since you became my daughter-in-law, I've rarely spoken harshly to you. But how could you come to persuade me to agree to this? Do you even know what he's asking for? As a son, a husband, and a father, he shows no thought of filial duty, no thought of loyalty, no thought of responsibility. Yet he clings to such an unrealistic notion. And you want me to grant his request? This is like stabbing a mother's heart." I answered steadily, "Your son is my husband, the father of my child. Whatever heart-wrenching pain you endure now, I share equally. Yet my husband has told me many times that being born into this generation of the Duke's household without achieving great deeds is his greatest regret. I know that though he has lived an ordinary life these years, a part of his heart has always been lonely. He must have wrestled with this request for a long time. His mind restless. His resolve is so firm that he would even resort to harming himself to prove his determination. As his wife, I cannot bear to see my husband inflict such pain upon himself, nor witness this estrangement between mother and son, husband and wife. Therefore, I am willing to let go. I implore mother to give my words serious consideration." The eldest princess was stunned. She had not expected me to speak such words. In the end, the parents had lost to their son. On the day Hui Yan and Qin Yanyan left the capital, all his wives and children were present. Regardless of outward appearances, I could sense a shared indifference in their hearts. The Princess Dowager, sulking, refused to come. It was the Grand Duke who came to see them off. Watching the carriage recede into the distance, I held Chang'an close, standing half a step behind the Grand Duke. I heard my father-in-law say to me, "If they haven't returned by the time Chang'an is 10, I will report to His Majesty and propose appointing the great-grandson as heir." Only then did I realize that the Duke of Dinghua, renowned for his military exploits and revered throughout the Northwest, had truly grown old. Their departure sparked widespread speculation in the capital. Some said the princess had spoiled her son excessively, others claimed I couldn't keep my husband's heart. Neither the princess's mansion nor the duke's residence uttered a word in response. The emperor and empress dowager, moved by this, showered the princess and me with special affection. They summoned us to the palace several times to ensure our comfort, bestowing constant gifts to show the world that Princess Rongyang and the Duke of Dinghua's household were under the emperor's protection, their glory as undiminished as ever. Why should the world blame a woman whose beloved son insisted on abandoning everything to wander far away? Whose husband, after paying respects to his parents, retreated into a shell of passion to live in drunken oblivion? Life went on without Hui Yan and Qin Yanyan. In fact, without them in the way, it felt lighter. At last, no one had to watch their pathetic drama or be treated as supporting characters in it. Father-in-law and mother-in-law now treat me as if they've lost the son entirely, making no demands of me beyond holding up the Dinghua Marquis' household and bringing Chang'an and Shanhua to visit them more often. Seeing how deeply grieved the two elders were, I spoke with Li Qianghua. Now, each month, Chang'an and Shanhua returned to the princess's residence for 5 or 6 days, fulfilling our filial duties and bringing joy to their grandparents. Holding their grandchildren, both delicate and intelligent, healthy and bright, brought them immense comfort. The Duke never lived to see Chang'an turn 10. Truthfully, his health had already begun failing the year Hui Yan departed. Years of military campaigns had left him with too many ailments. As if foreseeing this, he had designated Chang'an as his heir apparent when the boy was only 6. Whether Hui Yan was too preoccupied with his new life elsewhere or everyone tacitly kept him in the dark, he and Qin Yanyan remained unaware of all this. After accompanying Chang'an through his 7th birthday, the old duke collapsed. His beloved wife, the princess, could not bear the loss and fell gravely ill from grief. I handled all the arrangements. At such a young age, Chang'an smashed bowls in mourning for his grandfather. Chang'an adored this grandfather, the one who took him horseback riding, helped him write large characters, and taught him to draw the great bow. He treated Chang'an 100 times better than his own father ever had. Deeply grieved, tears rolled down his cheeks. His sorrowful yet resolute expression already showed remarkable composure and dignity. Those who attended the funeral all remarked that the Duke's household had a worthy successor. His Majesty himself visited the Duke's residence to pay his final respects to this loyal and upright favorite, the recipient of the 9 bestowments. He ordered the ceremonial officials to bury the Duke with the honors due a prince, personally inscribing the words "A Heart of Loyal Taito" at a solemn tribute. Before the assembled crowd, the emperor made a solemn promise: when Chang'an reached 15, he would inherit the duke's title. No one mentioned Hui Yan. After that, the princess consort's health began to decline. I invited her to reside at the duke's residence with Chang'an and Coral, both for easier care and to spare her from painful reminders. It took 4 invitations before she finally agreed. The princess consort, once a golden branch in jade leaf, peerlessly exalted, stripped of all her splendor, was now simply a woman who had lost her beloved. She ceased meddling in affairs, devoting her leisure to recuperation and doting on her grandchildren. When Chang'an turned 9, Hui Yan returned to the capital with Qin Yanyan, not out of affection, but because he'd squandered his funds and came to collect from me. Only then did he learn of his father's death. His emotions erupted instantly. He demanded why I hadn't informed him. I countered. You and Aunt Chin haven't written in half a year. How could I possibly know your whereabouts to send word? He was speechless. The princess held resentment toward him and refused to see him. He and Chin Yen kowtowed, offered incense, took the money, and left the capital once more. Their departure was so hasty that even Chang'an, now the heir to the Duke of Dinghua, remained unaware. This departure differed from their last. Back then, Chang'an was young and innocent, asking me repeatedly why he hadn't seen his father in so long. Even when Hui Yan was still in the capital, he hadn't been particularly close to this son. So Chang'an's questions were simply innocent, devoid of any sadness. I told him then that his father had gone traveling to admire the famous mountains and great rivers. Now, he has matured greatly, studying alongside the imperial grandsons. He understands the weight of responsibility upon his shoulders. He applies himself diligently to his studies and martial arts, refusing to fall behind. Despite his young age, he already shows respect to elders and cares for his younger sister. My mother-in-law has sighed many times, saying I have raised him well. Her words carry an endless sadness. I know she is thinking of Hui Yan once more. Through my words and those of others, Chang'an has come to understand what a foolish man his father was, and how deeply it wounded his grandmother. Thus, he never speaks of him nor longs for him. As for Shanhua, she takes after her mother, a gentle, sweet-natured girl. Yet she also resembles me, harboring her own thoughts and plans. This is likely because Li Qianghua and I keep the two children together constantly, allowing them to absorb the best qualities of both of us. I hired a female tutor for her, unrestricted by the 4 books for women. Whatever she wished to learn, she could. Hu Jing cherished this younger sister, always mindful of her, protective of her, sharing with her whatever good things he had. This was precisely what I wished to see. When they grew up, I hoped these siblings would support each other. When Chang'an turned 12, the princess also departed. Before leaving, she told me, born into the imperial family, she had been nurtured by the realm. Aside from having a rebellious son, her life had been largely uneventful. Yet looking back, only a few decisions still felt right. The rest could remain in the hearts of those who knew her. But 2 matters she could share. The first was marrying the Duke, sharing a lifetime of deep affection as husband and wife. The second was that year at the flower pinning banquet, when she chose me to be her daughter-in-law. All these years, she has watched everything I've done, caring for my in-laws, managing the household affairs, raising the children, and keeping the servants in order. She is now completely at ease. She held my hand. The Duke's residence is now yours. Take good care of them. Days later, the princess passed away. At the flower pinning banquet, she had recognized my virtues and chosen me as her daughter-in-law. In the years since I entered the Duke's residence, she seldom troubled me. As a mother-in-law, she was exceptionally kind and generous. I truly cherished her, regarding her as my own mother. I arranged everything with utmost care. Those she left behind could remain in the residence to live out their days, if they wished. While sorting through her belongings, I discovered a jade pendant split into 2 halves. Upon inquiring with her elderly attendant, I learned that in their youth, my father-in-law and mother-in-law had sworn an oath with this pendant, should one depart, the other would not live alone. I wonder if such vows truly hold power. If they did, why did fate not punish Hui Yan when he made those grand promises in the heat of passion? If it had no effect, how then to explain the Empress Dowager following her husband to the afterlife just a few years later? Deeply grieved, the emperor ordered the Rongyang Grand Princess's residence to remain untouched, maintaining its daily cleaning and upkeep so that there would still be a place to remember her. The emperor treated the grand princess's descendants, Chang'an and Shanhua, with great favor. When the duke passed away, Chang'an had already been granted the title of baron, now he was elevated to viscount. Coral, formerly a county lady, was now enfeoffed as a county princess. In our dynasty, viscounts and barons held no real power and could not be hereditary. County princesses received only a stipend. Both titles were merely consolations for the descendants. Yet they represented immense imperial favor. Our entire household was deeply grateful. When I next saw Huiyan, Chang'an was 15 and had inherited the title of Duke of Dingwa. By the time Huiyan returned, I had already attained the rank of third-grade consort. Now, as the mother of a duke, I was further elevated to first-grade consort, my glory and prestige resounding throughout the capital. This time, Huiyan had been traveling in the Jiangnan region with Qin Yanyan when news of the Princess of Rongyang's passing reached him. He hurried back to the capital. It seemed they had not only heard of the Princess of Rongyang's passing but also of Chang'an's succession to the title. Huiyan was furious. He came to the duke's residence demanding an audience, showing no intention of paying respects to the princess. Instead, he confronted me, demanding to know why I had usurped his position as duke. I gave a cold laugh and ordered the servants to bring forth the princess's own letter. For years, he had neglected to visit the princess. Even upon learning of his father's death, he merely paused briefly before departing again with Qin Yanyan to pursue his pleasures. Though he had corresponded frequently these past years, each letter demanded money, never once inquiring after the princess. Her heart broken, the princess, fearing he might return to vie with Chang'an for the title, wrote this letter herself. Speaking on behalf of the late duke, she declared his inheritance rights irrevocably severed. For the rest of his life, he would remain nothing more than a disgraced viscount. His former friends, after he abandoned his wife and children, no longer associated with him out of shame. Now, the people of the capital knew only the new Duke of Dingwa, having forgotten the disgraced heir of old. Back then, he had pursued his love without hesitation. Now, he reaped the consequences. I instructed the gatekeeper to relay a message to him. As he remains blood of the Duke's house, each February he may visit any of the Duke of Ding's shops nationwide. Using his name and a token of recognition, he may collect 300 taels of silver, sufficient for his and Qin Yanyan's annual living expenses. This arrangement was also the wish of Princess Rongyang. Beyond this, nothing more shall be granted. I recall their last visit, both radiant and full of vitality. This time, however, they both looked visibly worn. The enchanting beauty who once captivated the Duke's heir at first sight, and then won his enduring devotion, has now become a quiet middle-aged woman. Life outside the palace walls can hardly be all poetry and picturesque charm. He and Qin Yanyan were temporarily staying in a small courtyard. Back when their love was at its peak, he had declared his intention to gift this courtyard to Qin Yanyan. But he never discussed it with me, no deed was transferred. No signatures or seals were exchanged, so the courtyard remained registered under the Duke's estate. I let them stay there for now, even assigning several servants to attend to them. Later, the servants reported they'd quarreled privately more than once. Huiyan blamed Qin Yanyan for urging her to leave the capital, while Qin Yanyan countered that Huiyan was incompetent, having lost his estate to a woman and a child. I pretended ignorance, it was their affair. After several public scenes in the capital, I avoided meeting him. Instead, I issued a public proclamation to all the noble houses. Huiyan was unfilial, honoring the final wishes of the late Princess Rongyang and the old Duke. I had no choice but to act thus. All households must refuse him aid. Everyone in the capital had witnessed the funeral rites of the princess and the late Duke. They understood the hardship I endured to uphold the Duke's household, and knew the bitterness of Chang'an inheriting the title as a youth without his father's guidance. Even His Majesty refused to see him. Perhaps they had grown weary of their stay. He and Qin Yanyan left the capital, their tails between their legs. Several more years passed. And Chang'an married. The bride was his own choice, Lin Qiaying, granddaughter of the erudite scholar Lin Buqing, Grand Secretary of the Imperial Academy who had tutored both him and the imperial grandsons. I had heard of the Lin family's scholarly reputation and knew Grand Secretary Lin cherished this daughter above all his grandchildren, raising her under his own tutelage. I had also met the young lady herself, her beauty radiant like spring blossoms, her mind sharp and ingenious, her demeanor graceful and composed. As mutual affection blossomed between them, I interceded to arrange their marriage. Lin Buqing had always held Chang'an in high regard, admiring his precocious maturity and mastery of both literary and military arts. Knowing his granddaughter was deeply devoted to Chang'an, he consulted his family and consented to the union. Coral was also betrothed. Her beauty and talents were exceptional. Born into the Duke's household with the status of a county princess, she had been raised under my guidance since childhood. She excelled in managing household affairs and was truly a daughter sought by 100 families. I had Chang'an make inquiries and asked both Li Qianghua and Coral for their own opinions. Ultimately, they settled on Chang'an's close friend, the heir apparent of the Marquis of Wenyuan, Qing Jiayou. Only then did I learn that when he came looking for Chang'an that year, to retrieve the kite Coral had dropped, Coral had met him. From that moment on, Chang'an carried a little secret, passing messages between his sister and his friend. I was both amused and exasperated, playfully swatting at Chang'an as he dodged with a grin. After Zhiying entered the household, I first had her manage half the affairs. Seeing her steady hand, I entrusted her with most of the responsibilities. Chang'an married first and then pursued his career. By this time, the Dingwa Marquis' household no longer needed to conceal its strength. He could do what he wished, becoming a young general. Coral also married, a ceremony Qi-Ying and I arranged together. With Chang'an escorting her down the aisle, she was sure to find lifelong happiness. Seeing my children all prosper brought me peace of mind. Each morning, gazing at my reflection in the mirror, I saw the years had passed. Wrinkles had gathered at the corners of my eyes. Li Qianghua accompanied me through half my life. Though I initially looked down on her, I grew unaccustomed to a single day without hearing her sweet, coquettish voice. Ling Yang passed away early. Qingji, more than a concubine, functioned as a chief steward under my command. The other concubines and maidservants were all provided for in their old age by the Duke's residence. In my later years, Qingji passed first, and Li Qianghua, who had been by my side all my life, left at 50. Though my heart was inevitably saddened, I had, after all, protected them throughout their lives. Huiyan and Qin Yanyan eventually returned. Grown old, perhaps too weary to wander anymore, Huiyan wept and pleaded to see me, saying he knew regret. Qiaying asked if I wished to see him, but I declined. After all these years, his character remains immature. He believes that any wrongdoing can be forgiven simply by acknowledging his remorse. The courtyard they once occupied now housed others. So Qiaying arranged for a residence on the city outskirts and assigned 2 attendants to care for them. Yet neither I nor Chang'an went to see them. The servants reported that Huiyan refused to live with Qin Yanyan. Qin Yanyan also pleaded through intermediaries for me to find her another residence. I agreed, arranging for a room next door. After all, she was a concubine of the Duke's household. They lived in mutual loathing until their deaths. I lived to a ripe old age, blessed with children who bore children of their own. My house was filled with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all dutifully tending to me. In truth, it was a life well lived. The end.